Welcome to the back
To the back.
to the back
To the back.
podcast. Look, got it. That was first try. That was in sync. No, I was gonna make like an in sync reference, but then there's the whole like Justin Timberlake and anyways,
Right.
welcome to episode number dos. Numero dos.
Yeah.
From your
yes.
favorite mother and son duo. And I will say it every podcast episode.
It's not awkward at all.
No. Are you wearing stitch pajamas and?
Yeah, it's a whole outfit.
Nice. I saw the stitch. I don't know.
Yeah.
We will have video soon, but
For now.
now, if you imagine a very nice stitch pajama PJ set.
Yeah.
And I'm wearing a community Greendale sweater with some Nightmare Before Christmas fuzzy pants.
I feel like that fits.
I mean, it matches.
Yeah.
Fits, maybe. I don't know.
Vibe-wise, too.
Vibe, yeah. Anyways, welcome to episode 2. And today, we're going to talk about grief.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
There's no really, I don't know how you segue into talking about grief excitedly.
This morning when I was thinking about it, I made up a little song, but I don't think I should do that.
No, I want to hear it.
No, it's
You can't say
really
that and not sing it or not present it in some way.
No. It's so stupid.
Go ahead.
Well, you know how I take songs that we already know and I make little
Yeah. I'm
words
waiting.
to it.
We're all waiting.
It is to the tune of Let's Talk About Sex. So that's why it's awkward.
Let's talk about
grief, baby. Let's talk about trauma, please. Let's talk about all the crying and the numbness that will be. Let's talk about grief.
All right.
That was a little ditty that came in my head this morning. Yeah. If you can't tell, we do tend to make jokes about really sensitive subjects, deep subjects. I make jokes about everything, but especially when things are awkward or uncomfortable, that's my go-to.
Yeah.
Grief is a subject we are very familiar with.
Too familiar,
Yes. Let's see. My first real thing with grief actually was a friend of mine, Nathaniel, that passed away. I was in my late 20s when he passed. He was in a motorcycle accident.
Oh yeah.
After work, and
he's the reason I don't ever. I mean, I like motorcycles, but it just scares me.
Yeah, it was what made it so weird is that we had been talking on the phone as he got off from work, and then he for some reason was, I think, called back in, and so he's like, "Hey, I gotta let you go. I've got to go back." And then the next day, I find out he wrapped his motorcycle around a pole, and he was only wearing a half helmet. And it's just really weirded me out, besides the fact that we're so close in age, you know?
Yeah.
And when you're young and someone your age dies,
yeah,
it makes you very aware of your mortality. The fact that I was one of the last people he spoke to before because it wasn't that he died immediately. He was in ICU, and ultimately it was the fluid on his lungs that caused him to die. And what's really creepy about that is that the night before he died, I dreamt about him drowning in a bathtub.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, technically that's what he died, is water filling. Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
So it's just
But that can't be your first, encounter with grief.
Yeah. I mean, as far as loss, there are different types of grief.
There are, yeah.
We'll mostly focus on grief today concerning loss, when you lose somebody.
Yeah.
There are all different kinds of other losses that also you can grieve. But yes, that was my grandfather died on my mom's side died when I was very young, so I don't remember him. And I don't, there wasn't any, I can't think of anything before that, you know.
I mean, my first is it Peepaw?
Yeah.
Peepaw's my grandpa, her mom,
Oh,
um, her mom,
her dad.
her dad.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish it had been the other way around.
That's a
I don't
different
feel bad
subject.
about that. Yeah,
Um,
my dad.
but what was that? It was fourth grade, third grade.
It
I
was
was
your
in.
fourth grade year.
He died of esophageal cancer.
Yes.
Um, and I mean, like I think I mentioned before in previous episodes, I grew up without my biological father. Which I mean, by the time before he passed, Andy, my stepdad, who eventually passed away from the same cancer later on, we'll get to that. He was in the picture already, but for most of my life up until he died, my grandpa, I didn't have a father figure like directly, and so he was that father figure for me. I mean, I don't know. I know there was like faults that he had as a father to you when you were a child, but like he was a great man, I think, all
Well,
in all. And it's
there's
just kind of like he was the like we say he was like the glue that held the family, even though we didn't get along with most of our family. He held like the big family together, like the extended family. And so when he passed, all ties with them kind of cut. And then that's like my first time I really experienced death close to me. Um, and then that like spiraled into so many things. I mean, that's what I think ultimately, uh, which we'll get into, I'm sure at some point, but led into me overeating and developing an eating disorder. Um,
well, okay. So
Go ahead.
no, before like you want to
I wasn't gonna continue more past that. I was just saying.
um I think I'm saying from my perspective watching you, um it wasn't even just like the eating, you also struggled with school. Like
Yeah.
you almost didn't finish fourth grade uh because of that. I distinctly remember having to have a meeting with the principal and your teachers. Um
Remember like not being like homework. I just like and like I was like an A+ student. I think that's the only time like I really got like B's. Is
yeah.
and I know that's not, oh you got B's whatever, but like I mean like it was like not only mentally showing that it was affecting me, but like in like my academics it
Right.
was presenting itself.
I don't know. I'm really trying not to cry. Like I'm already getting whatever. But yes, my dad was. I mean, my dad was not perfect. Nobody's perfect. There are a lot of things from my childhood that I wish he had done differently. And it's not even like things he did directly to me. It's the things he allowed to happen.
Yeah.
Um, but I will say that the moment he was diagnosed with cancer, which by the way, I found out, Dakota found out the next day. I found out the day that Andy and I got married that my dad had stage 4 esophageal cancer. And that's just like, that kind of gives you also an idea of what our marriage was like because it was, I mean, our first year of marriage was dealing with my dad
Yeah.
having terminal cancer. But the moment that I found that out, any resentments that I had been carrying towards my dad, like just magically vanished. And, I've mentioned that I'm in sobriety and I do work a program and the program that I work, there's literature for it. And there's a part where it says when we're talking about treating people that are either like maybe still using or drinking or even people that don't use or drink, because trust me, I have met people in my life that I wish that they had a problem because I'd be like, I have a solution for you, but they don't, right? The literature says you treat them as someone who has cancer, meaning to have compassion for them. And I never fully grasped the meaning of that until somebody that I love dearly actually was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And again, it just magically, whatever being there is that's bigger than us took that away from me. And so those 13, 14 months that we had, because it was about 14 months after he was diagnosed in October of 2011. He passed away in December of 2012.
2 days after Christmas.
Yeah, 2 days after Christmas. Holidays are very rough for us. And
we don't get me wrong, we love Christmas, but we also have to deal with sad anniversaries.
And so I just didn't have those resentments anymore, and it afforded us to be able to talk in ways that we had never been able to talk before, have a relationship that we didn't have before. And I wish we'd had more time. Like, I said earlier, there's griefs of other kind, right? It's not just that I grieve the loss of him, I grieve what could have been.
Yeah.
If our pride had worked itself out sooner, And
I think it's not funny, but it's just like, I don't know, ironic, where the same kind of thing happened with me and Andy. Yeah. Even though we weren't blood related like you and Peapod, it's just when Andy, my stepdad, was diagnosed, what was it? When was he diagnosed?
December 12th of 2019.
December 12th, 2019. So what is it, like 7 years later? 8 years later?
From what?
From Peapod's death.
Yeah, almost, yeah.
It was my senior year of high school.
No, it was your junior year of high school. Wait.
No, it was my senior year.
No, it was he died your senior year. He was diagnosed your junior year.
He was diagnosed my junior year, that's right.
Yeah.
And it was, like I said, the same cancer, which isn't that common, this type of cancer, right? Like, it's
stage 4, or it's just esophageal cancer in general. If you look up statistically, like what causes it, like what are the causes, one of the number one things listed is being male, specifically white male, age 30 to 75, like literally just existing. But
and yeah, obviously, I mentioned Andy was white.
Yeah, Andy was white. My dad was white, obviously. It isn't a very well-known cancer, but I will say it's pretty prevalent. It should be more well-known, and it's also pretty preventative.
To get back to my original point, it's just funny you mentioned it, is because I was carrying right before he got diagnosed, I was carrying like resentment, and like I was having issues with him, and then I wouldn't say all of it went away, and that's something I'm still dealing with, but a lot of it went away, especially towards the end when he eventually did pass, just before I graduated high school during my senior year, and it's just like in the years since, it's just can count like countless dreams of just like wanting to do things, countless times like a video game is gonna come out, or like a movie's come out, and just wishing he was alive just to see it, because I know he would appreciate it. And it's just like little things that I guess I took for granted. And like, it's just, that's the weird thing, because I especially with me and him, like, I don't, it's too early to cry.
It's never too early to cry.
Fair. I wish, I don't know, you always, it's hindsight. It's hindsight 2020. Like, you never expect these things to happen to you. And it's just little things like I wish, even for like a moment, I could just like play a video game with him just for one time, and it's like things don't feel the same anymore. I don't know.
Sorry. Then I was thinking about how I wish I could throw a football with my dad.
Yeah, I mean,
like, for real. So I don't want to just like focus on the loss, right? Do you understand, for when you have a loved one that has a terminal illness, you are watching them die.
Yeah.
And that is a whole different kind of grief. You are grieving you start grieving then. Like, there was time, like, after, even after, like, probably for a year or two after my dad died, anytime I'd get a phone call in the middle of the night, I'd freak out. Because, because my dad was in and out of the hospital a lot.
Yeah.
And so it just, you get PTSD, honestly. And it's it's not just that I want to talk about like how it is for you, like how it feels, but then it's also how people respond to you grieving. And things like people just, I don't want to say they ask dumb questions, but it's just this like, don't ask, like they ask, how are you doing? Right? She's like, how are you doing? And that I hated when someone asked that question, because first of all, most people that ask that question don't really give a shit.
Yeah.
Even in that circumstance, they don't really care
what they don't know what else to say.
It's not even just that.
They don't know what else to say, or they're just. I'm gonna let you.
Okay, this is my experience now, having gone through this with my father, gone through this with my husband. A lot of the time, it is a way for them to feel like they are doing something without having to do anything. Because if they ask you how you're doing and you respond and they say something back, they'll walk away and be like, ooh, look, I did a good deed. And I don't think it's malicious. It's just the way that our society is set up.
And I also think that humans are inherently kind of selfish. And so, like, no, and what I mean is, like, if they can find a way to make themselves like
you're literally just saying what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know. I'm just like dumbing it down. That's all I'm doing.
I don't think that I said it.
Yeah, I don't think you said it in a complicated way. I'm just saying like that's like why. Like it sucks.
And most of those people, I'm going to be real honest, are neurotypical people that respond that way. If I ask you how you're doing, I actually want to know. But that question is just, it's such a asinine question to ask somebody who is experiencing grief and loss in those moments, whether it's after they died or while they're actively dying.
It's like asking someone on the toilet, do you need toilet paper?
Well, yeah, obviously. I just remember.
That's what I'm saying, right, obviously.
When Andy was in hospice, and I just want to also, not only did my husband have the exact same cancer at the exact same stage, he had the same oncologist, the same gastrologist, same freaking hospice, like it literally everything. And you understand that with Andy, it was
during the same
during
time of year.
COVID.
Oh, that's another big thing. So like he obviously got cancer right before COVID hit, and then COVID hit, and that's also was my senior year, and I was applying for colleges. It was a whole big thing. So, like, it was the most inopportune time. Right. Not that any time is opportunistic to get cancer, but...
No, my thing was, though, when Andy was in hospice, like, I think it was like the second or third day he was there, I had to step out, forgot for what reason. Oh, I think it was something with the FMLA. And he never finished the paperwork to get that submitted, and we didn't have money. The paycheck wasn't coming in, and the people that were dealing with that were like, we need to speak to him, and he wasn't speaking anymore, so he wasn't going to be. I'm like, you can't. He's not talking, and so it was like a big old deal, and it caused like a lot of anxiety in me. And one of the nurses came up and she's like, how are you doing? And then before I could say anything, she's like, that's a stupid question. I am so sorry. Obviously you're struggling. And I said, I wish in circumstances like this, when you are grieving, when you are experiencing loss like this, that instead of people asking how you're doing, they would say, you know what? I see you and I'm here. And do that. And to listen to the people that are grieving, because everybody grieves differently. Everybody's needs are different.
I was about to mention that I'm just thinking about now, is I feel like you never really know how grief can affect you, and also I think grief can be like a delayed thing, because with Andy, I think I delayed my grief with him mainly because I kind of had to, like I said, because of the college thing. And so I think at the time, it forced me in a weird way to like tighten up and like buckle down and like get on my shit with college. And then, I mean, I got into USC because of it. But I think as a result of that, I pushed my mental feelings aside, in which like caused it to hit later and maybe much worse than it would have been if I would have dealt with it at the time. You know?
No, I do know. I begged you to do therapy.
Which as I was gonna yeah, I therapy for everyone if you can, please do.
Yeah.
Even if you are at a good place in your life, I still think you could benefit from it. But like I was gonna say, I think people are someone who could have benefited a lot from therapy,
Yeah.
as Andy could have as well.
Yeah. It's weird. I know I definitely felt when both of them passed, but that's the other thing is you'd think, oh well, your husband died from the same cancer as your dad. You would think the grief is the same. It's not the same. It's not the same. Now whenever someone and I say this as someone who loves has pets and loves my pets like they are human, right? Don't compare losing your dog to losing your father or your husband or a child. It's not the same. As someone who has literally experienced it, I promise it's not the same. It isn't deep and hurts, but it is not the same because I didn't think I could hurt any more than I did when I like lost my dad. And the grief with Andy felt so much more overwhelming. And I want to preface that I loved Andy, but we had a lot of problems. And those problems didn't magically go away when he got cancer. It wasn't like with my dad. There was a lot of issues. So it made my grief very complicated.
I mean, that's actually a form of grief. It's called complicated grief.
Yeah.
It's one of the forms.
And then where my dad's concerned, it was also complicated in a different way, not because of my feelings towards my dad, but because of what my family members did. The way that we were treated as the day he died or the night before he died, the way we were treated after he died, literally after the burial, we pretty much went on no contact. Yeah. We were orphaned. And so it made it, I even during the process of like, when I went to the funeral home and they're planning the funeral, I was so numb. And watching the things that they cared about that I could give a shit about, I just wanted my dad. Like, and feeling like their grief was more important than mine. It was probably the first time in my life and I doubt you remember it. I was so docile.
Yeah.
Like, I literally remember telling Andy, I cannot deal with him. You're going to have to talk with him. And I wrote my dad's obituary. I also wrote my husband's obituary. It was a very different, and well, actually not different because Andy's family did the same thing. Made it about them. Like, and I get it. You're going through this hell. It feels very personal to you. I don't know. I guess I don't know why I'm capable of trying to consider other people's feelings in it while also doing mine. I don't think I'm unique. I think there are people that are capable of doing that, but I've yet to see a whole lot of them.
Yeah. I don't know. I was trying to think of like grief presented in like popular media we've watched.
Oh, well, also before we talk about that, another double layer for me as far as grief is concerned, with having ADHD, object permanence is a thing. So it's out of sight, out of mind. It is that in the everyday, I don't see you, I can forget. And so that when I do remember, oh, hey, you're actually dead, it's like grieving for the first time when I remember that.
I can't remember how many times I said, "Oh yeah, Andy's actually dead," or I said in my mind like, "Oh, he's actually gone. Peebod's actually gone," and like I had to like remind myself that like I said before, I grew up without my biological father, still in yet contact, and then the one that filled that role was Peepaw. Then he died, and then even though Andy was complicated, he was still the father that like he stepped up in the way he could, I guess, or did, and then he's gone, and so it's just like every opportunity for a father figure to be in my life, they disappeared, whether that's on their choice or through just like the world, and it makes it even worse because I don't know, I don't know if that has made me want to be more of a father or more scared to be a father.
I mean, that's only for you to answer. I had never planned on having children. That's like I was like dead set on I wasn't gonna have kids, because I was fearful because of the way that I was raised by my mother that I would end up doing that to my child. And then I had you, and I couldn't imagine not being a mom. So, but I get like fearing that, I think that's funny that you said that. So I feel like we both have very succinct, what we consider are done very well in media where grief is portrayed.
What do you mean?
Where I know what mine is for me, and I know what yours is for you.
What?
Twilight. Bella.
That's not.
She's grieving.
No, that's not mine though. But
we've talked about that.
No,
okay, it's such an accurate representation.
Okay, so everyone listening, whether you like Twilight or not, for me, they're comfort movies mainly because like I watched them as a younger lad, a wee little lad. But they're comfort movies. But the one scene I will say, and it's the first one, right?
It's not the first. It's the second one. Is it New Moon? Yeah.
Where Edward is like gone or like
he
dead,
leaves. Yeah, it was after her birthday party.
And then it's that scene where I think it's Possibility by Licky Lee or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just her like
sitting and
crying and watching the seasons go. And like that I think the director did a really good job. I don't know who decision it was, but it was basically her sitting and it would pan the shot and it was just the seasons changing, but her room doesn't change, her clothes don't change, her face doesn't change, she just stays the same. She's stuck in this pit of grief.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and it clicks back to her like screaming at night and just like having nightmares. And it's just like, I don't know, like, grief, like to me, like it feels like you're stuck in a sinkhole and there's like no way of getting out.
Yeah. I know a lot of people made fun of it as like, oh, that's so dramatic, but the
It's
people that are saying that
real.
obviously hasn't really gone through loss.
So real.
And you can say, well, he didn't really die, but again, you can have losses.
I'm sure some of them might listen to this. I've almost felt not nearly the same. It was like about Andy or people dying, but being away from my friends. Like it's just like when you're like so far from people that you love so much,
right.
Whether that's because of death or because of distance.
Oh my God. I was Bella when we lived in Wisconsin. Like I ached for the sun so much. It's gray 7 to 8 months a year there. 2, I missed Texas, and Texas is not perfect, and there is a lot wrong with it, but it is home for me.
I want to go home.
Yeah, I'm literally Sandy, and I would spend days balled up on the bed, just crying and aching inside because I missed it so much. So what I feel like has been like one of the very best representations of grief, also besides What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams, but that is, if you watch that, be prepared, you're going to cry the entire movie. That is different. I don't suggest that one because it's I mean, watch it once, never again though. WandaVision.
Oh.
WandaVision, I feel like is the modern media that has best represented grief. Like all aspects of it. The anger, the denial, the bargaining, just all of even the acceptance, like it's done so beautifully. The fact that she creates a world to hide away in,
Yeah.
and then oh no, like it, and it wasn't just that. It's that whenever, and I'm sorry if you have not seen WandaVision and it spoils things for you.
Spoilers, yeah.
Like, just watch it. It's so good. The people in the town, because it's basically she takes this town hostage, with her witchcraft, and nobody can leave, and she puts a spell on them, and like where they're not really fully cognizant, they'll have moments. I think it's moments of her like whatever, and there's a moment when they are in basically I forgot how they said it. One of them's like at night when she dreams, when she's in pain, they can feel it. And they basically is like, if you're not going to let us go, please kill us because we can't bear the pain anymore. And when they said that, it did remind me of A, how deep the pain is, and B, how much those around you don't want to feel your pain. And that's where it goes back to again when they say, how are you doing? That's the most they want to do. They don't want to go past that. I'm not saying that some don't,
Yeah.
but I will say for us, 3 months after Andy died? Pretty much everything dried up, support-wise.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Like, radio silence, for the most part.
Yeah.
Like, a handful of people. Because it's hard enough dealing with your own pain, let alone, somebody else's. And that pain is so immense, that grief. There's a really good quote at the end of, towards the end of that series where, Vision says, what is grief if not love persevering? And I do really like that. I mean, I think about that when I'm sad.
I mean, you want to talk about grief related media? The one that came to mind was actually Avatar. There's so many different forms, especially like the stages. I mean, so I guess spoilers for Avatar: Last Airbender if you haven't seen it, the amazing masterpiece that it is. But I mean, like you have Iroh with his son.
Oh yeah.
Which that song kills me every time.
Yeah.
But there's also like the first like anger and denial when Aang loses Appa and he's gone.
Yeah.
Like the immediate realization that, and it's funny you mentioned how it's not the same losing a pet. I do think there are some circumstances where like if that's like all you grew up with, because it was Aang and Appa, like the rest of the monks were gone, so for like all of his life that is virtually like his brother, but like it was first the anger and denial that like someone took Appa. And like even though like he didn't know he was dead or not, it was almost like the same thing. And it's just like going on that like with life that he had to just accept that he can't be with Appa still.
Yeah.
Like it's the almost same thing as death. Like after Andy or after people died, I asked the world so many times like how is this fair? How am I supposed to keep going and act like everything's okay when like I wasn't afford the luxury to act like everything's okay sometimes. Like I said, especially with Andy, I just turned 18. There's all this like pressure to like go to college, grow up, but at the same time want to cry inside like a little kid and just not have to deal with anything.
Yeah.
No,
there were, even when, like, before my dad passed, when he was just sick, and I remember times...
Sorry. And then Katara with her mom. Sorry.
Yeah. There were times, I'd get so angry that the world hadn't stopped, because didn't they know my dad was sick? Or after he died, like, didn't you know my dad, like... I'd get, a lot of anger. The fact that here's my dad, he's got this deadly disease and I've got to serve you food. I don't want to. Like, I'm just like, it's so unnecessary right now. You don't need this soup and salad that badly. And I know that's just like stupid, but it's hard when you're going through that. It's so all encompassing.
Mm.
It consumes every part of you, even when you're not aware that it's consuming every part of you.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I really just wanted to do this about grief, and this is definitely probably more than a one episode thing,
Yeah.
because that's the other thing is grief is not linear. It it does come in waves, and sometimes it feels like you're drowning. I remember looking at, I mean, it took so look. I gained over 200 pounds after Peepaw died. I think it was like 3 or 4 years after my dad died. I looked at Andy and I said, I feel like every day I am almost drowning. I am treading water. And there are some days where I get tired and I get sink under. Like, that's just how it felt. Um, the first 3 months after Andy died, I had some serious considerations. Let's just say that. Like, I thankful that I had the dogs and I have you, you know? Um, it felt like my world was just crashing, caving in. And then that, I will say the first year after Annie died, I don't really remember a lot of what happened. I was in a fog.
Yeah.
That's a real thing. And now I've done therapy to work out the resentments I had, the unresolved, stuff. So as now I'm able to grieve him in a different way. And like I said, it comes in waves. It comes and goes. Sometimes it's really strong. Sometimes it's not.
The weird thing is, I think the times I've cried the hardest for both of them wasn't even when the day they actually died. It was either some time after, and like
Yeah.
this big bundle up or like accumulation of realizing, and like whether something else I've been going through, and that just like adding on to it, or like when I found out.
Yeah.
Especially when I found out both of them had it, I had severe panic attacks and just bawling my eyes out. And I just think, just like therapy, I think it's something you always gonna have to deal with grief. Like in life, like you're always gonna have to work on it.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody should expect anybody to be like done or like, oh, yep, I'm accepted that he's dead. Like you can I guess you can accept it, but like have been dealt with it.
Well, I'll say, like I said earlier, everybody grieves differently. So if somebody you love experiences a loss, like that, it's significant. Um, just do that where you say, I see you and I'm here, but really be there and listen to them. Let them tell you what they need.
Yeah.
And understand that need is gonna still be there years later. I mean, I know for me, I feel like, again, within 3 months, we were forgotten. There are maybe a handful of people that, but no, even then, it's just basically we're forgotten. And I think they just think everything's okay, and it's not. And so I would say, please check on your friends periodically, listen to them, let them talk about their loved one. That's, the way that they're able to remember them. It brings them joy to be able to talk about them. Even if it's them talking about the complicated feelings they have. Let them do that. What is it? I think it's Eminem that says there's two deaths. The day you die and the last time someone says your name. Like,
I think that a lot of people say that, but yeah.
Yeah. Let them talk about them in whatever way that they need to do that.
That's a scary thought. That someday there's gonna be the last person that remembers you.
Yeah, no, literally causes a pit in my stomach.
No, I thought about it before.
And then I think we'll end it with the last one of my. This is a quote on grief that I read years before my dad passed, before I really had any significant loss. It's by Anne Lamott, who is a really, really great author. Where she says, "You will lose someone you can't live without, and your heart will be badly broken. And the bad news is that you never completely get over the loss of your beloved. But this is also the good news. They live forever in your broken heart that doesn't seal back up. And you come through. It's like having a broken leg that never heals perfectly, that still hurts when the weather gets cold, but you learn to dance with the limp. And that was something that really stuck with me.
Dance with a limp?
Yeah,
Jesus.
like,
get that tattooed on me.
That's something that has stuck with me over years. And, you know, I had just learned to start dancing again after my dad died, years after. And then my husband was like literally within a year after I started getting back to me, and he was diagnosed. And then I start all over again. So I'm not sure what the dancing is going to look like completely now, but I'd like to get back to that.
I'm sorry.
Why? You don't have to be sorry. You're going through it too. I don't know. I love you.
I love you.
And we don't know y'all, but we love you too.
Yeah. And if you're dealing with grief out there, just know. I was gonna say no, you're not alone, but that does, like, when people say that to me, that doesn't make me feel better.
No, dude, you're kind of alone. But if you're going through grief,
address it because it's important.
Yes, and also know that no matter what you're feeling, what it is, that
doesn't make you any less of a person.
All feelings are valid. I've told Dakota that since he was little. All feelings are valid. There are no wrong or right feelings. It's what you do with them.
Exactly.
So we hope you keep coming back.
To the back.
To the back.
To the back. Podcast. Bye-bye.